International news now. In Egypt has put forward an ambitious plan to end the Israel-Hamas war. It calls for a ceasefire and a phased hostage release. It also proposes the creation of a Palestinian government of experts who would administer the Gaza Strip and occupied West Bank. The plan, worked out with Qatar, has been presented to Israel, Hamas, the U.S., and European governments. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel would not succeed in freeing the remaining hostages without military pressure. And this is the results of that military pressure here in Gaza. You can see Palestinians digging through rubble over the latest airstrike. They were looking for survivors. That airstrike brought buildings down and killed at least 100 people. In Lebanon, Israel's military fighter planes striking targets belonging to the militant group Hezbollah overnight. It included military compounds and operational infrastructure. The strikes follow frequent clashes between Hezbollah and the IDF along the Israel-Lebanon border. It's been going on continually since the war began. Hezbollah, which is allied with Hamas, boasts a weapons arsenal with tens of thousands of rockets, missiles, and military drones. Joining me now is retired Major General David Fraser, our CTV military analyst. And Major General, thank you very much for joining us today on Christmas Day.
Roger, good to be with you.
Let's talk about the proposal for peace. Are you optimistic? Is it realistic?
Well, I'm not optimistic. I think it is a realistic plan. It's a comprehensive three-phase plan that talks about exchanging of hostages, the humanitarian relief, a ceasefire. It's been brokered by Egypt. You've got Qatar involved. You've got the United States. So you've got all the key negotiators talking to both Hamas and Israel. But unfortunately, the Prime Minister has just come out today and just he's quadrupling down on what he's doing inside of Gaza. So it doesn't look like it's going to have much of a chance of succeeding.
And it's about the hostages for the Israelis, isn't it? They want them released before they stop.
It is about the hostages, but Netanyahu keeps going on about war objectives and about the destruction of Hamas without actually defining what does the destruction of Hamas looks like. And, we continue to ask this question. At the same time, the operations carry on and they are intensifying in these urban centers, and yet we don't know what do the objectives look like as an end state, and how close is Israel in achieving those objectives over and above the hostages.
And just going back with this possible deal, is there any hope of ever building trust between Hamas and Israel?
It's a great question, Roger, and I'm not sure there's going to be much of that for the short term, but it does just signify just the world, and including regional players, are really putting a lot of pressure on both parties to come back to the bargaining table, add in some humanitarian support, release some of the hostages, and let's get the talking going that we saw before, which we had, days of no fighting. But Israel and Hamas are just adamant on killing each other, and they don't seem to be listening to the world at all.
Now, I know we hear Prime Minister Netanyahu standing firm about this. Are there cracks showing, though, in the Israeli wall?
I think there's going to be there are what I wouldn't call, maybe not just cracks, but you can see you can see that the system is starting to vibrate inside of Israel, because, they're killing, there's almost 21,000 people killed. There are a lot of Israeli soldiers are dying. They just found another 3 hostages killed in the tunnels. And, there's going to be more and more and more questions raised about this entire operation that the Prime Minister is going to have to answer. And so I think there's going to be a growing voice inside of Israel asking the Prime Minister this, which is another dimension to this story that is yet to unfold.
But I guess the question is how long before that pressure is big enough that they actually have to step back?
There is no indication right now that there is enough pressure that's going to make Israel step back. They are actually stepping into it as opposed to stepping back with all this pressure, including the Security Council. It's unfortunate for Palestinians who are caught in this fighting, but there seems to be no relief for their suffering.
Now, the Al Maghazi camp was hit by the IDF today. Is there real? I mean, when people think of refugee camps, they think of tents. But a lot, when you say a refugee camp, when it comes to Gaza, they're apartment buildings, they're neighborhoods. Does it make a difference whether it's a refugee camp to the IDF or whether it's part of Gaza? They're just going after Hamas.
They're just going after Hamas. And right now they pushed all these people into the southern part of Gaza. They're pushing them into a smaller and smaller area or a bag. And he just keeps going after Hamas. Hamas falls back into the population, hides amongst the population, fights among the population. And the Israeli Defense Force are just going wherever Hamas is. They're going in there. They're probably doing their best to mitigate civilian casualties. But as the indications of the last couple of days, civilians are getting wrapped up in this fight, and it is not going to change. It's just going to get worse as the days go on.
All right, retired Major General David Fraser, thank you very much for joining us today.
Roger, thank you.